Hi, I'm Scott Fraser, creator of the Star Warriors comic, and you're listening to the True North Country Comics podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. If you want to drop me a line, you can contact me at john@truenorthcountrycomics.com. On this episode, I chat with Scott Fraser about Star Warriors and more at the 2022 Toronto Comic Arts Festival. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. It's also available on the True North Country Comics channel on YouTube. I invite you to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button. Scott is a Toronto-based webcomic creator and digital art freelancer. Scott has a digital animation diploma from Centennial College. This followed with work from Sinking Ship Entertainment before tackling webcomics. After a successful Kickstarter campaign, Scott has self-published a webcomic in print form called Star Warriors that will be showcased at the Toronto Comic Arts Festival. Star Warriors is described as a fantasy anthropomorphic character-driven story about wishes, the afterlife, and astrology. And so without further ado, here's my chat with Scott Fraser about Star Warriors and more at the 2022 Toronto Comic Arts Festival.
So Scott Fraser, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Hello, thank you for, inviting me here.
Sure. No, this is great. But before I get started with the questions, I want to ask you, what was the first comic book that you read?
First comic book that I read a long time ago when my mother is Latin American, so I used to live my childhood in Chile. She brought me from Canada a Spider-Man comic. However, I was intrigued by the Spider-Man comic that I received because it was not the classic Spider-Man I had seen on television. I used to just watch TV and all that stuff. So it made me wonder, there are different types of Spider-Man out there, and then I figured out eventually, yeah. So it just blew my mind that there could be multiple versions of Spider-Man, and I was just curious and what the possibilities were of that.
Yeah, no, that is fascinating when someone discovers, wait a second, there's more than one. So great inspiration, Spider-Man growing up, certainly animated TV. But I'm wondering who or what inspires you to create today?
Today, well, I have a myriad of inspirations, but one of the springboards of why I started to create was actually from a family member. His name is Oscar Armando. We used to play chess a lot. I was a kid. I was 8 or 9, I think. I don't recall exactly when this happened, but my family member, it's my cousin, I believe, I'm bad with family members. I don't know if it's my cousin. He's older, he's bigger, he's kind of uncle level of wisdom. I'll put it at that.
Okay,
our family
sure.
is big. My great grandmother had 18 kids. So
wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then Oscar said, "Hey, you know what? Instead of chess today, I want to do something different. I want us to imagine a world where these chess pieces actually talk and communicate to each other." And I was like, "Huh? What do you mean?" And I said, "Yeah, just imagine that one day one of the sides of the board decided to create a more powerful piece than the rest to finally defeat the other kingdom. The Z piece, the ultimate piece that can move anywhere, jump over legions of pawns, and just strike the king out of nowhere." It was interesting because it made me imagine what a world based on chess would look like, and imagined in my head. Where he was started to describe to me the story, and when I asked him if he could continue the story for me, he said, "No, I'm done. Now it's your turn to continue the story yourself." And that's where I really started to get into creating stuff. I started making fake magazines where you would get stickers and put them on. I don't know if you had those collectible magazine books. In the past. I started inventing those based on whatever. Then I started making my own stories near high school. And I've been just making nonsense ever since, actually.
There you go. Great inspiration, that's for sure. Now, you're an exhibitor at this year's Toronto Comic Arts Festival. I'm wondering, do you have any past favorite convention moments that you can share?
Well, based on what the comic that I do, I've been to a lot of anthropomorphic conventions. I don't know if you're aware of the furry culture or not. I'm part of that mostly. And I've been to a bunch of conventions where I've seen people that have disabilities, and sometimes it's interesting for me to like try to get them what they want and communicate with them. My most memorable moment was actually a convention attendee who could not hear and was deaf. On the fly, I just grabbed a piece of paper and just wrote out if he wanted anything or if he wanted to purchase anything from my table. And it made me really realize how many different people like go to these conventions as well. I never imagined I would just get something like this. Was like years ago, like about 6 years ago. I didn't even have a printed comic by then. And I don't know, it's like every convention you go to, every festival you go to as well, they're all going to be different with different people, different friends that you meet, different challenges. And I'm excited to see what TCAF brings. It's my first comic festival, so I have no idea what's going to happen.
All right. Well, it'll be something, that's for sure. So with that in mind, wondering what will you be showcasing at the festival? What will be on your table?
So I'm going to bring my printed version of the webcomic that I have created, Star Warriors, first book. See, around 2 years ago, before the pandemic started, I ran a Kickstarter for the printed comic, and it succeeded. Yay.
That's great.
When I got the books, COVID happened.
Oh.
So I was not able to sell in person for the longest time. Only until recently, in the latest Canadian Furry Convention that is localized here in Toronto.
Ah. So can you tell a little bit about the story and maybe what inspired you to create it?
Oh, absolutely. So I'm a fan of astronomy. That's one of the things that I've loved as a child in the past. Star Warriors is a story about wishes and how cosmic beings protect them in their afterlife. In Star Warriors, there are cosmic beings that they are tasked to protect the wishes. What are wishes? Wishes are stars in the sky that people in the planets or any other planets out there in the universe have made wishes to. So every dream and every wish, every passion that a mortal being has is sort of materialized into a star in the sky. However, there's the dark matter, which is a dark force that seeks to corrupt these wishes and turn them into a more vile and destructive and self-destructive to the mortal too version of said wish. If a wish dies, is like their dreams don't materialize or they don't get to do what they wanted to, or other means they could destroy the wish. It creates a black hole destroying parts of the universe. So it's the Star Warriors' task to protect these wishes. In the past, before I even started the webcomic, I wanted to make a story where I could, maybe collaborate with other webcomics or sort of like communicate in that sense. So do like a crossover comic once in a while. And that's part of the reason why I guess I set the world of the universe for my story. And I've always been a fan of people making original characters and different alternate universes and what have you. So I've even went into the task of creating a guide sort of how people can create their own character. Because I can't believe I haven't mentioned this, but all the Star Warriors are people that have died that ascended into the cosmic realm. So if your character dies, the cause of death sort of transforms into a glowing tattoo on your body when you ascend into the spirit cosmic realm, and it glows a different color. So there's a bunch of different ways these marks manifest, and that's all described in the guide. And I know I'm just like a fan of sort of like challenge design character like that.
Ah, right. Okay. Want to switch gears a wee bit and ask you about the tools you use to create your art.
The best comic tool that one can use is Clip Studio. It's very good for paneling. It has all the tools you require for fill tools, rulers, perspective lines. There's so much in Clip Studio that you can use. I use Clip Studio Paint EX, which is the more advanced version with more tools that allows for animation and even in the program itself, you can display the pages and show them as if it was a comic book itself. And it's very beneficial for how you want to see your book if you want to print it.
Before we started recording, you mentioned that you have a collaborator on this project. Can you talk a wee bit about that?
Well, very recently I announced one of my dear friends who in the past was looking at several of my pages and saying, hey, the text here is not correct. You should edit it here. And may I do a rewrite here? And eventually me and my friend got to talking and I agreed that he should be a co-writer for the story.
Did that cause you to go back to the drawing board, so to speak, and rethink everything, or did you just continue on?
No, we work pretty fluidly together. This has been going on for like about a year and a half. It just sort of started to, how do I put it into words? The part of the writing collaboration work started to increase in size to the point where we just said, hey, it's just obvious for us to be for me to be your co-writer. I'm like, yeah. His alias online is Gunny Waffle. He works on a lot of community management stuff. He's also one of the founders of a webcomic collective I am in called Foxglove Comics.
Like, I know when you first started out, and this is what I'm trying to get at, when you first started out your project, it was a singular task, a singular thing that you were working on. Then you brought on somebody else. Did that change the dynamic of the creation, or was it just a natural sort of, hey, let's just work on it, and it came together?
In the sense of how my workflow and how my story writing and what I want to portray in the comic is, nothing changed in that regard. But in the terms of production, such as setting things up in a pipeline, organizing how you're going to write the story, and just how you're going to post it, that changed. And it changed for the better, really.
Oh,
it's
good.
more of an evolution rather than a change.
Cool. I know that you've got a project here for Toronto Comic Arts Festival, but do you have any other up-and-coming books that you can talk about? Any other projects?
Yes, I am working. I'm going to be talking about it on my social media anyway. I was keeping it a secret until TCAF, but it's fine to announce now. I'm working on a mini booklet of all the bonus content I've made for the comic. I have a Patreon of my webcomic, and one of the old rewards was that patrons of mine would request or recommend sort of bonus content of the story for me to produce. And it was a fun reward that I had to discontinue due to time constraints. But I'm going to bring that printed into TCAF to sort of like give with the comic itself, like the main one.
It'll be a nice bonus work that everyone can share.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, very good. Now, we've been talking about TCAF. I'm wondering, do you have any other conventions or festivals that you're planning to attend later this year?
Later this year, there is another Anthropomorphic Convention that's settled in Ottawa. That one is happening on July 29th to the 31st. It's called Conference. It happens every year as well. I've been looking into other festivals to attend. Since we're exiting COVID, I've been just recently looking into more locations to go to.
Right. Yeah. Now that it's, and you'll have the opportunity to promote your books there as well?
Oh, of course.
Oh, very good. Well, with all the activity that you have going on, and certainly I'm sure there's more to come, do you have a website that you recommend where people go to find out about your current and your future projects?
Of course. For the webcomic, you can check it out at StarWarriorsComic.com. And I have a Patreon as well, which is patreon.com/StarWarriors, where I give a bunch of rewards, such as people can see some pages ahead of time, or they can get certain commissioned artwork from me of whatever they want, and even suggest doodles I can draw for the month.
Thanks to Scott for the chat. You can discover more about Scott online at starwarriors.com and patreon.com/starwarriors, plus artstation.com/Scott Fraser. And thanks to you for listening to the True North Country Comics podcast. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to and like this podcast on Apple Podcasts. And please leave a good rating. Also check out the TrueNorthCountryComics.com website and follow along on Twitter at True North Comics. True North Country Comics is now on YouTube. Please like and subscribe to the video channel and hit the notification button. Please send your feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. Thanks again for listening, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. Truth Country Comics Podcast is copyright Truth Country Comics, copyright 2022.